Somebody said he was away.
He probably is.
For like 3 weeks.
I'm guessing that that's what's.
Because they were like, oh, it was supposed to be this Thursday, and then, or something like that. But
Yeah,
he's
no,
gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Just trying
Somebody said he was away.
He probably is.
For like 3 weeks.
I'm guessing that that's. He just couldn't connect to it. So I don't know whether they'll even show up. Yeah, no. When is that? Yeah. Is that He probably is. I don't know. Like, I don't know who's going to go. I don't know what to do. I don't either, so I'll see. I don't know what happened. Wait, I don't think He probably is. I don't know. Like, I don't know who's going to go. I don't either, so I'll see. I don't know what happened. Wait, I don't think He probably is. Like, I don't know who's going to go. I don't either, so I'll see.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Let's hear where we are on streaming live. Vancouver Police are making a plea to the public for help after a dramatic increase in thefts from vehicle in the first quarter of 2018. From January to March of this year, the VPD recorded a 39.4% increase in thefts from vehicle over the same period in 2017. The VPD is reminding people who work in, live in, or visit Vancouver and park on a city street or in a parkade to take the appropriate safety precautions. Theft of items from vehicle is a preventable crime. You can take simple steps to help prevent thieves from breaking into your vehicle. One of the easiest things you could do is avoid leaving anything visible in your car. The VPD's Crime Analysis Chronic Offender Unit, surveillance teams, and patrol officers are working behind the scenes to help reduce the frequency of theft from vehicles. You may think that an item is not valuable, like a car charger or a jacket, but it might be enough to tempt a thief. The effort it takes to remove all visible items in your car is minimal when compared to the cost and hassle of replacing a broken window. In December, the VPD arrested more than 25 suspects and recommended over 80 charges during a month-long theft from auto project in downtown Vancouver leading up to the Christmas holidays. The VPD is also encouraging the public to familiarize themselves with GeoDash, which is an interactive mapping tool intended to enhance community awareness of policing activity in Vancouver. And go to vpd.ca for additional crime prevention tips. Any questions?
Was there any particular neighborhood, and you mentioned street and parkade, any one in particular? Or?
There wasn't one in particular. This was citywide. There are obviously some hot spots in the downtown core where more people park and things like that, but we didn't want to single any one particular area out, but just say this is a citywide problem. 39.4% is quite a jump, so that's why we're here today, to get the message out that we all need to work together to prevent this crime.
Jason, you mentioned in December a significant amount of arrests. Is this surprising to see that there's such an increase after what you think would be quite a, you took quite a bite out of it with all the arrests in December?
Yeah, we are surprised to see the jump again, but we are monitoring these stats as they can go up and down, and we want to get on top of it. As soon as we see an increase, we need to get the message out there and bring these down as soon as possible. So we are doing our fair share, and we are doing projects, things like that. And I also want to let the public know that, and anybody that may want to break into a vehicle, that we have our bait cars out there as well. So if you plan on breaking into a vehicle, the next vehicle you break into might just be a bait car. So also be aware of that.
When you see an increase like that, do you think it's usually like a group of people, the same group of people, or just, is there a reason why there's such an increase?
Well, it's hard to say, but in the past, we have noticed that it has been one or two chronic offenders in a certain area that have been released or are out there or new to the area that are responsible for a large number of these break-ins to vehicles and mischiefs. It can be a number of things, but the increase is causing us to reach out to the public, make sure everybody's aware. We have some things that you've seen off to the side here, simple things that you leave in your vehicle every day that you might not think are valuable to you might be enough just to tempt somebody to break your window. So something small you think is not valuable, some spare change, anything that's there, just leave everything out of sight. So we don't want to tempt thieves.
So has there been any arrests made with incidents you think happened in the first quarter, and do you think the rest of the quarter will remain high as well?
I'm not sure. It's hard to predict stats. We have made arrests. I don't know how many we have, but we are starting to look at this as well from the police. And anytime we see this increase, especially in this, we have police resources adjusted appropriately to address these issues. And we're getting to some probably some projects and some other things that we're doing, such as the bait car program. So we are out there working, aggressively working this, but we also need the public to help us keep any items that are visible in your vehicle, just keep them out of sight.
Percentage, but did you also add the actual amount of reported? Just so
We didn't add those yet, but I can get those for you after if you'd like.
Is the bait car program still effective in tracking down all those criminals?
The bait car program is effective. It is out there. It is a tool for us, especially to advise any criminals that are out there breaking into cars that we have these cars out there. We set them up to be broken into, to take items from. And you never know, the next car that you break into could be a bait car.
Can you put that 39.4% increase, can you put it a bit into perspective in terms of how significant is that compared to other quarters that you've seen? When was the last time you saw it jump that significant?
I don't have the stats on how it was, but I can say that's almost a 40% increase. So for any crime, without comparing it to any other quarters or anything like that, that's a big jump for us. So we do need to get on top of this right away.
Are there any specific times during the day or night when these break-ins happen, or are they just throughout the entire day?
I don't have the breakdown of that, but what we're saying right now is this 39.4% is citywide and it's all over. So there probably are certain hot spots and things like that. But we don't want to get the message out there to the public that if you're okay if you're in a certain time frame or if you're not in a certain area. We want the message to get out there to everybody in the city, no matter what time of day it is, no matter where you park. Do not leave anything visible in your vehicle.
Are you reaching out to neighboring cities like Burnaby or Richmond to see if they are also having similar issues with car theft as well?
Yeah, we will be working with analysts. We do share information with other police agencies. It's quite normal for us, but right now we're working within the city of Vancouver to get this message out there.
Did you say, is this mostly just a smash and grab kind of phenomenon, or is there anything more sophisticated about the way cars are broken into?
I think it'll depend on the make and model of the vehicle and how easy it is to get in. I have seen it where you can break into a vehicle without breaking a window. However, the most common way of doing it is to actually break a window, and that can be done quite quietly and easily, and it's a real quick process for these criminals. So smash and grab, and they're gone.
Do you mind if I switch gears for a second?
Sure, yes.
You can comment on the incident in Toronto yesterday.
Sure.
Obviously, from a police perspective, seeing that video, seeing the video, particularly of the standoff with the police officer and the suspect, can you comment at all about what's going through that officer's head and just about, from a police officer's perspective, walk us through that a little bit?
Well, first of all, from the VPD, we want to express our sincere condolences to the friends and families of the victims of yesterday's tragedy in Toronto. Our thoughts are with our fellow first responders in Toronto. I don't think it'd be appropriate for me right now to comment on the actions of a police officer. Right now, the investigation is still very active and still ongoing, so I won't comment on the police response or the investigation in Toronto. We'll leave that up to the Toronto Police to comment on that.
Maybe just in terms of the training that you see at VPD for incidents like that, it takes a great amount of restraint, I imagine, to not fire.
What I can say is we do in Vancouver Police, we do receive training to deal with situations such as potentially an armed suspect. Each individual officer's comfort level and how they respond to it are very fluid situations, and it will be up to each individual officer's subjective observations at the time of any sort of critical incident on how they respond. We are prepared, and that's what we do as police officers every day, react to very fluid and unfolding and very dangerous situations quickly. What I can tell you as far as Vancouver and preparing for things like this in our operations, we do have heavy vehicle barriers that we have used recently as part of our planning and preparations and execution of our operations plans for large crowd events. You may have seen those in Canada Day celebrations, celebration of lights. We've used these recently for any sort of similar type of scenario.
It just, you drop a big vehicle
It's
somewhere.
just, yeah, it's a heavy vehicle barrier. So maybe a city truck, such as a heavy garbage truck or something like that in a populated area. So that has been a part of our operations plans for quite some time, and we use that and prepare our plans and for large scale events such as those. So individual officer training as well as preparations for major heavy events.
And so that's the big events. You can kind of plan the area, but I mean, this kind of attack must be awfully challenging. You can't plan for a vehicle leaving the road at any given time.
Yeah, from a policing perspective, I think the only thing we can say, or from the VPD or for the citizens, is just to remind everybody for public safety, when you're out in the public, just to be aware of your surroundings as best you can. If you're in a public street, or if you're in a public restaurant, or wherever you are for public safety, if you're walking by yourself on the street, don't have your head down. Be aware of where you are and what you're doing. I do know that cell phones can be a distraction sometimes for pedestrians. All of us can get caught texting or listening to our earphones. So for your own personal safety, if you're out in public, be aware of your surroundings.
Were there ever any discussions with the city about putting in permanent barriers at all?
I do know there have been discussions definitely for that, and they have come up with our mobile heavy barriers, which are vehicle barriers. And those kind of things right now we wouldn't share with the public, but we do obviously prepare for as many scenarios as we possibly can. But we also know we can't prepare for everything, but we'll do our best. And we want to remind the public that if you see anything suspicious at all, call your local police.
And the heavy vehicle strategy, is that relatively new? When did that start happening?
I don't have the exact data when it started happening, but we do utilize that now as part of our everyday operations planning for major events where there's going to be a large crowd gathered.
From a personal perspective, or other officers here in Vancouver, when there is such a fluid event that is happening, talk about the personal side of it a little bit, but what do you guys train to do when things are going a mile a minute?
Well, it comes down to each individual officer. We obviously rely heavily on our training. We have training from the police academy, our police experience, and we have to be prepared every day for any challenges of policing. And I would probably say it's similar to a baseball game where you never know what pitch you're going to get. If it's going to be a line drive or a hard grounder or a pop fly, you have to be prepared for any event. And you may not even get a ball that game, but you still need to be prepared for it. So every day our officers that are out here in Vancouver, even though they may not get the call, they have to prepare themselves mentally and physically for anything that could happen.
Can we ask about the collision this morning?
Sure.
Have details on that?
Yeah. Do you want me to go over what I sent out here?
Yeah.
Sure. So just after 2 a.m. this morning, 2 Vancouver police officers in a marked police car with emergency equipment activated were responding to a robbery call. The cruiser was southbound on Denman Street, and as it approached Alberni Street, a gray 2007 Acura traveling west on Alberni pulled in front of the marked police car. The two cars collided, and the Acura ended up on the sidewalk and caused damage to a restaurant patio. The police cruiser and the Acura were heavily damaged, while two parked, unoccupied, unrelated vehicles sustained minor damages. The VPD officers were transported to hospital with minor injuries and have since been released. The lone occupant of the Acura, a 29-year-old Vancouver woman, was not injured but was transported to hospital as a precaution. The woman from the Acura is currently being investigated for impaired driving, and this investigation is ongoing. Do you have any questions regarding the?
And the police officers, is it right, they had the green light and she had a stop sign? Is that the scenario that happened?
I don't know who had what, but I do know that that intersection is controlled with a stop sign and a pedestrian signal. So that will form part of the investigation as our investigators move forward. They'll have to determine what was going on there. Any other questions regarding this or any other? Okay, well, thank you for coming.